All right, Dan, we're up.
All right.
All right, guys. Good to see you all. I hope you had a good weekend, Dan. How are you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Somehow, Sean, despite being 300 miles north of you, I got your cold over the weekend. So I've got a nice, this is not for show. I got a nice raspy voice. I took my son to the Yale Harvard game, really with the people. Yale upset Harvard, so it was a lot of fun to go watch. And otherwise, my Giants taught me another lesson about how to lose a game.
Well, I actually spent Friday, as you probably saw from the backdrop, I was down at Mar-a-Lago for an America First Policy Institute event. Absolutely, I feel like when you're those are like college reunions. You go back, you get to see everybody, have some great conversations, catch up.
In black tie, of course.
In black tie, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's kind of nice, and I'll be honest with you, waking up. um, in Florida and going for a run walk because I got to be honest. There's just it's so nice. I mean, I was telling my buddy who lives down there, I was like, I could wake up every day just be so
Yeah.
happy. Now I get it. Sometimes the contrast matters, but like when it's cold here in Virginia, you appreciate the Florida warmth a little bit more. So I don't know if you wake up every day like that you fully appreciate it. Maybe you do. Um, anyway, I appreciate everybody jumping on this morning. I think Dan and I obviously realized there was a lot going on, and you know what? We had nothing to do. So we
I
thought
love
we,
my family, but
yeah,
come on, it's 9 a.m.
and they were like, "Aren't you helping?" But so anyway, we just thought we'd do a little we call pop up, just chat, catch up, talk about what happened, and then I'll read through the chat on YouTube if there's some questions or whatever, and then we'll give you guys some updates at the end. But Dan, let me just kind of like this is Thanksgiving week. It's a quiet week in DC.
Yeah.
Um, and the president's got two things on his schedule. Well, the White House has two things on their schedule today. The first lady's getting the Christmas tree, and I just want to be on record very clearly. I don't mind receiving the tree, but it can't go up until at 5 o'clock on Thanksgiving. Like you can't, you
I
have to.
I got the Christmas stuff out, but have not
Yeah,
put it up. And
that's
we'll get the
fine.
tree after
Right.
Thanksgiving.
I have
Yeah.
no problem. You can get ready, but like you
Yeah.
can't turn the lights on.
Okay.
And I hope the first lady's that's what she's just doing. She's just getting the tree. And then the president's going to have some kind of executive order signing at 4 o'clock today. We'll talk about
Close
potentially
pressed.
close press. Yeah, right. Um, two things, and then Congress is out. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of his cabinet members are doing some various things. So real quick on the day, because we'll talk about the potential healthcare announcement in a second.
Yeah.
But what is interesting to me is, speaking of Palm Beach, they put out the road closure and flight
Yeah.
guidance, right? But the question is, I initially knee-jerk reacted and said, "Oh, he'll fly down Tuesday." Now with all this Ukraine stuff and potentially Zelensky coming over, we'll talk. I actually wonder if he doesn't leave Wednesday afternoon,
Yeah.
because obviously when you're president of the United States, it's not like you have to buy a ticket. Um, but I say that because, we assume this is going to be a quiet week.
Right.
So anyway, let's kind of maybe you want to just start reviewing. Let's talk a little bit about what happened this weekend, and we can talk about what we think is
Yeah.
going to happen this week.
Yeah. I mean, I think, just to catch up because it obviously will influence the week ahead. I think we got to start with the Trump Mundani meeting on Friday afternoon. I think it was remarkable. Television. I happened to be at Newsmax getting ready to go on, and we just sat and watched it, and people's jaws were dropping. Throughout the building. But I mean, Sean, what is your first thought? Obviously, it surprised a lot of Democrats. I think probably the same on your side of the aisle. What is the meaning of this here in the immediate future, you think?
What is the meaning of this?
Yeah, I mean,
I feel
how do
like
you
the
think?
parent, someone walked in afterwards, is like, "Can you explain this? The meaning of this me?" Look, I was listening to Reince Priebus, my old boss, talk about this on This Week, and he was spot on. Um, what I mean by this is like Trump one-on-one with anybody is gregarious, he's funny, he's engaging. Like you tell Trump, and this is why people get so many times they get outraged about him. I mean, he's a businessman. He likes to be like you tell him he can't win someone over, that's like the biggest challenge. So I think that what people misread in that meeting was that it was anything more than a meeting.
Yeah,
Like tomorrow, like he could come out and say Zoran Mondami is a left-wing nut job crazy who's going to destroy New. it was a good meeting. It was good TV, and that's it, full stop. And don't read anything else into it. And I think that's where I got a kick out of all these people sort of trying to read tea leaves. Like, what does this mean? Every ad maker at the NRCC and the NRC is going to have to throw out the playbook. And I'm like, trust me, wait 24 or 48 hours and there will be a truth social about this crazy nut job Mundani is taking New York in the wrong direction and da 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 da. Donald Trump knows how to like have a meeting better than, I mean, like, this
Yeah.
was him being him, and that's it, full stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting. I do think he enjoyed hearing Mundani say, I walked around New York and met a lot of his voters who were also my voters, talking about kind of affordability in the working class. Like Trump broke out a smile every time Mundani went back to that. I do think in the short run, though, first off, I think we can all agree the biggest loser, at least immediately, was at least Stefanik.
Yeah, but again, I don't like maybe for 10 seconds, but
Yeah,
again, it gets back to the idea that it's not like he's not going to start. Once Mandami puts out a single
yeah,
policy, Trump's going to say you're ruining New York. Also, he got asked, Mandami got asked on the shows, do you stand by your fascist comments? And he's
yeah.
like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting. I don't know for people who didn't see, Mundani's chief campaign manager gave an interview this weekend and was asked about the ICE raids, and she kind of said, "Look, we want to work together for violent criminals who are who are violent, felons, etc." Which is the first time I've heard them kind of talk about where they could cooperate on a more granular level. But I agree, at least from the Democratic side of the aisle, for one weekend, there was a little bit of a sigh of
It was, you
relief.
know what it was? It was Thanksgiving dinner. It
Yeah.
was it was they were in the Oval, everybody said nice things, and then
Yeah.
dinner's over and they went back to like, but I just I don't think this is gonna last.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
I think everybody who thought that it meant anything more than one good meeting was crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously the other big news over the weekend was the retirement. And it was funny. I was literally at dinner at Mar-a-Lago and go, too much information. I'm going to the restroom, and the guy next to me says, crazy about MTG. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that she was here. And they're like, no, no, she just announced. And like, you could see one of those things at dinner where everybody immediately flips to their phone telling you who
Yeah.
the dinner it was. I got to be honest, I was taken back on this one.
Yeah. I mean, what was the reaction in the room? I mean, you're with a lot of Trump people. Were they gloating? Were they,
No, no,
did it feel like a
the thing
scalp?
that I found funny was, so it was twofold. One is, and I was shocked at this, is that like, because look, I will say this. I know Marjorie. Um, I like like I actually think this says a lot about where things were, right? And people need to, I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about what the takeaways are or something. I think this is one of those moments where she just said, I don't need this anymore. I don't need, like, I've been a loyal supporter of the president. Um, and when people talk about her breaking, I mean, again, there's two things that I think came out that I heard at the dinner.
Yeah.
One, they thought when she went on CNN and apologized for whatever, that was sort of you don't go to the enemy's house and apologize. Number two, what I heard was, she turned on the president on the Epstein files. And again, this is one where I'll say, hey, look at the videotape. The president and his team and his supporters were the ones who said, let's release the Epstein files. And she basically said, yeah, I support you. Then they switched and she stayed. It wasn't like some huge policy thing
Right.
where I get some of these discussions where you break with the president on a big policy, like you don't want to support the big, beautiful bill. Okay, I get it. That's policy. But on this one, because I'm like, you guys were the ones that gin the people up in the first place. So, and Marjorie has, I mean, she's weathered the storm. Anyway, so it was sort of a mixed, but
Yeah.
the thing that I thought got lost in this whole thing, and I tweeted this out, this is my reaction. I was like, guys, we just lost another vote for a while.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a sec because Punchbowl is reporting this morning that other House Republicans are now are very
Well,
frustrated.
before you jump the shark
Yeah,
on that one, the one thing that I think Republicans have to realize is this is the oddest irony. Had Mikey Sherrill not won the New Jersey governor's race,
yeah,
right? So she resigned already. She
yeah,
resigned ahead of her swearing in on January 20th, meaning there'll be a vacancy. Even though it's a blue state, it's going to take at least 4 or 5 months to fill the seat. Mike Johnson would have had a big, big vote problem for a while
yeah,
because that would have been the Dems would have been. I mean, if and especially by the way, this Tennessee 7 race, Dan.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If you didn't hear my interview with Tim Burchett on Friday night, I said to him point blank, the last thing I said, before we end, can you just tell me about this Tennessee seventh race? Uh, he goes, I'm worried.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like he's worried. He
Yeah.
was telling me, he said, look, I mean, you can say what you want, but this is another example where I get they're putting out this video of the Democratic saying, oh, I don't like Nashville, but she's a state. I mean, again, this to me is like the Mikey Sherrill thing in
Yeah.
New Jersey, where it may be true, but it also is that what people are going to vote on? And
Well, and look, so Punchbowl this morning reports that other Republicans are thinking of retiring, House Republicans, kind of along the lines of Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're frustrated. They feel like they don't need this. They posit the idea that it is possible, though not a high probability, but legitimate, that Republicans could lose the majority in this Congress.
well, so that's my point, though.
Right. If
Think about
Tennessee
this.
were to
If Mikey
go, yep,
Sherrill hadn't, like,
yeah. At some
you
point, they're
get, I
going to
mean, like,
replace her. If they lose Tennessee and a few members retire and they can't fill those, and every state has their own laws about
right.
how you replace. Newsflash, they're totally partisan on our side. On the other side, always the famous Massachusetts story about when Mitt Romney was running, they changed the laws so that Mitt couldn't appoint a replacement, and I mean just crazy stuff. But it's something that we're going to have to watch out for because you and I were talking prior to coming on. It is common between Thanksgiving and New Year's for members to decide to retire. On
Yep.
who usually it's the
Stay
majority
at home with the
party.
family.
Yeah, you worry about kind of losing majority status. You don't want to go back into the minority. And you just say, that's it. I'm going to get out. And,
Well, there's two types of retirements, though. There's the Marjorie Taylor Greene retirement, which is you
yep,
retire mid-term,
yep,
mid-cycle.
yep,
And then there's I'm not seeking reelection. Both are problematic,
yep.
right? Now, here's what I'll say. Two things, because we got a bunch to get to, but I'll say one, I guarantee you, when they come back from Thanksgiving, Mike Johnson says at that next conference meeting, guys, you got elected. You are not leaving before this Congress. Number one. Number two, if you plan to retire at the end of this, you give us a heads up,
Yep,
or I'll strip your committee seats. I mean, like because they can, you're right. The mid-cycle one, problematic. I mean, huge problems because
yep,
suddenly you lose your leadership, your committee. I mean, that's it. Katie barred the door. And by the way, if you're Donald Trump, you suddenly go from your agenda and what else you want to get done to investigations and impeachment in a time you didn't think so.
yep,
Number two, the ones that are thinking about not retiring, right? That becomes a big NRCC problem because you go from, um, a guy that or a girl that you didn't have to worry about wasn't an incumbent, had some cash to suddenly, wow, that's an R+5 seat.
yep.
Who wins the primary? Now we have to make sure we have the right person. Do they raise money? And you look at what's going on in Tennessee 7, a Trump +10 district. This guy Mark Van Epps is apparently not. I mean, I still
And
think,
that's where on our side, momentum starts building for
right.
fundraising,
And
candidate
and that's
recruitment.
why I've always
Yep,
said special elections are special. But where they do is one, there's lessons to take away always. Number two is that they help with the psyche,
yep,
building momentum, getting people to your point. You brought this up before. When you got to recruit, you go, look what happened down in Tennessee 7. This is your
yep,
shot. And
yep,
you basically get 5 or 6 self-funders to jump in a crazy race that they would have never been able to do before, and say, hey, write yourself a couple $1 million check.
yep.
Um,
This is the go time. All
all
right,
right, look,
number three here. You.
yeah, that this is let's my turn. Look, I said this last week on Friday, and I'm glad to see what happened over the weekend, where these Dems that put out the video, you saw even Bill Maher say that what he thought the Dems said in that video
Yeah,
was as close to sedition. I mean, like again, and there's a difference between encouraging and breaking law, and I will, I'll be the first to admit that they have a right to say that under the law. I will give them this, but you're pushing the line, and I tweeted something out that got a decent amount of attention over the weekend when Alyssa Slotkin, who's never served in the military, was asked to cite an example. Not only couldn't she cite an example of an illegal order by the president, she cited A Few Good Men, literally the movie.
a
And I
great
kept
movie,
thinking,
by the way. We can
it
all
is.
agree,
But you know
bipartisan,
what?
great
Again,
movie.
I kept thinking, you know what, Alyssa Slotkin, you can't handle the truth. And I
It's
because but this is a video that I know it took off in a certain way, but I got to be honest with you. I don't think that this thing aged well.
yeah. And I actually said this last week in real time when it was brought up and I was being interviewed somewhere. it is a head scratcher because you would normally do this when you have something to point to. Like
Right.
that order was illegal. And like, folks, you don't have to do this. I do wonder if it was literally just to get in Trump's head. They're all, even though Slotkin was
100%.
CIA, not military, the credentials of all of them is pretty good. It wasn't like it was
No,
like
what?
AOC and Katie Porter and like,
All right, let me give you my critique on this. Number one, if you wanted to be more rock solid, stick like Maggie Goodlander,
yeah,
naval intelligence officer, smart move. Alyssa Slotkin never served in the military, not a good move. Alyssa Slotkin out on television talking about how you go to your JAG officer and which is, I got to be honest with you, you're on a ship, you think some petty officer is going to walk and say, I don't want to steer the ship towards Venezuela until I talk to the JAG. I mean, that's not what we need.
yeah,
That's not
yeah.
how it works. And you don't just go to the JAG, you go through your chain of command. So she got that wrong. Number two, she started citing examples about, well, I have National Guardsmen that are at Southcom questioning it. And I'm going to myself, now this is where Martha Raddatz, not understanding the basics, would have said, I'm sorry, there's National Guardsmen serving at Southcom dealing with a Venezuelan issue. Could you tell me more about this? Because I have a feeling that that's not true. I'd
Yeah.
love for her to say, excuse me, present to me one National Guardsman serving at Southcom dealing with and this again, if this was a Republican flipping an issue like this on Democrats, the press would be all over it, pulling it apart and saying, okay, that part's not true, that didn't happen. But Alyssa Slotkin is not the best messenger to talk about how orders are executed and followed in the military. That's
I
just
will. I will say this though. On the left, they were people are giddy. They're like they stood up on nationals. So it is like a base play. It did fire up our side.
yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Let's go to. I don't think we have too much to say on this, but for those who do not follow the news on Saturday night, first off, what are you doing with your life? DOGE, it was quietly leaked. I think it was to Reuters. That kind of formally has ended 6 months earlier than necessary. Sean, is there? I mean, do you think we see something like this again, or do you think this was a one-time, bulldoze? Elon and a president who's got big kahunas. Do you think we ever see this again?
So I am you know this from like I believe that it should always be tilled the field of government like
Yep.
inefficiencies ineffectiveness. I always tell the story. I served on a temporary military task force to deal with detainees back in the 2000s, and as far as I know, I think it still exists. I mean, my point is that like government once in a while, and while I was there, what they were trying to do is make themselves permanent. I'm like, guys, well, there aren't going to be detainees forever, and they're going to get tried or but like government has a way of mission creep where it just
Yep.
exists and it never gets examined, etc. So I think there should always be some form of Doge, but it's not in the swamp's interest to do that. So you
Yep.
go back, you look at Reagan, the Grace Commission, Al Gore reinventing government. I was excited about this because what it brought was an examination of government with somebody like Elon. And my
Yeah.
point is that you're always going to need somebody of like W.R. Grace,
Yeah.
even Al Gore, like the vice president, somebody who's got the gravitas to go in an agency and say, I'm sorry, administrator, director, whomever, we need to look at this budget. I hope that they'll be addressing how to further this. But to answer your question, there's a reason these things only come around once in a generation.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you don't hear even Republicans kind of clamoring for more. Like everybody seems to be like, okay, thanks for playing, good night. And that is an interesting thing because it's amazing to think when we started this year or whatever, March, it was the topic that we were talking about
Yeah.
almost daily. And it's remarkable that it just,
And but the thing that's interesting about everything I cited, right? You go Grace, Gore, Elon.
yeah,
What's the common theme? It's the executive branch. And my
yeah,
point is that I tried this when I was on the Hill at the Budget Committee. My boss, Jim Nussle at the time, asked every committee to go find 1% of waste, fraud, and abuse, inefficiencies in there. And it was like, we can't do that.
yeah.
And so it worries me as a taxpayer when you're $38 trillion in debt and we can't even do the basics. But I hope that we haven't heard the last about, like at least an effort on this. All right.
Yeah.
As we look ahead, obviously a few big issues this week. Ukraine probably one of the ones that's going to keep the president potentially in town. We talked about the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just remarkable. I mean, I think we have to start with what a remarkable turn of events this weekend. I mean, you get the reports that this was our plan, that we were pushing on Ukraine. Saturday morning, stories start breaking that there was a security delegation, bipartisan Democrat, Republican senators, I think in Canada, I mean, it's Halifax or somewhere. Rubio calls into that group, tells them it isn't our plan. Like, I don't, fully support this. You get, Republican senators, Mike Rounds, others, Democrats, kind of, according to the reports, Rubio says, you can say I said this. It goes out. Rubio then Saturday night or Sunday morning, tweets out, no, I'm a part of this. This is our plan. Like, it has been a wild set of events, but it does appear, Sean, like it is the Gaza playbook. This idea of like, here's a plan. Let's try to get some high level agreement to, most of it. We'll fill in the details later. I'm skeptical. Like, at least in Gaza, we felt like the U.S. government has Israel's back, right? And they have enough kind of street cred with Saudi Arabia that like they can finesse this. I'm not sure whose back necessarily we have right now. And it is remarkable that, we don't have a lot of details. The Ukrainians, I think, are playing ball with Trump. But what do you make of this? Do you think Zelensky may be in D.C. by Wednesday?
Well, that's why I was saying that we talked about the schedule right off the bat.
Yeah.
I was like, look, because I think Zelensky, if you're him, I would have the plane on the tarmac, engines running, ready to get over here because you can't. I don't know. Rubio walked back that deadline a little and said, well, it could be Monday, it could be Friday, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
But I actually look at this in an interesting way, I think, which is like, it's like, so they put out a 28-point plan and everyone craps on it and says, this is totally in Russia's favor. Then you're right. There's this call to this meeting where Rubio says, what plan are you talking about? There's a plan.
Yeah.
And then over the weekend, in the last 24 hours, we see something that seems to tilt to Russia. I mean, excuse me, to Ukraine.
Ukraine,
now,
yeah.
Do you think that Russia is going to go for any of that stuff? Like they keep, so this to me, the first iteration was trying to get the Russians on board, right? And again, I said this at the time. This is Trump trying to constantly think of new ways to get a deal, which is you start with this group, non-traditional, but at least it's an idea of like, how do we get this solved, which is what his ultimate goal is. And that got a lot of crap. The Ukrainians will never take this. So then they go over to the Ukrainian side. Okay, well, what do you guys need? I think the Russians, this is all like, they're going to go, guys, we had a deal. And then, so to me, I think the Russians don't want a deal. And they want to say, Mr. President, we thought we were on the right track. And then you guys blew this up. And so I'm not very hopeful.
So what do you make of these reports of like a rift potentially between like the Vance more isolationist wing and the hawkish Rubio wing? I mean, one thing that was remarkable is Rubio got on a plane this week, flies to Geneva, is with Jared and Witkoff, kind of. So they present a happy family. There are reports that like Rubio is not pleased but that like Vance might be encouraging Witkoff. We've always talked about 2028 being harmonious between Rubio and Vance. Do you think there is some tension building, particularly on this issue?
Look, even if there was, well, I shouldn't be that dismissive. I apologize. I don't mean to say
happy holidays.
full smack in the chat per minute.
That's right.
Here's what I think. I mean, first of all, at the end of the day, even if they got completely sideways on this issue, which I don't think they will, if they did, Marco is a really smart political guy. And you still read the tea leaves, which is as long as Trump's with JD, then this is JD's to give up, right? And Marco's not going to go on a suicide mission. But he's a really smart guy politically and strategically. So I think at some point he might read the tea leaves or God forbid, I could see him exiting sooner than anything else. But I mean, that to me, he is not the kind of guy that he is very smart politically and strategically, as I said. Therefore, he's going to fight the fight, make his points, and then be a good soldier. I mean, that's what it's going to be. But I think he's also fighting, no pun intended, a two-front war. He's got what's going on in Ukraine, and then clearly big into what's happening in Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll go to that and then come back to healthcare. The reports of I got family in Puerto Rico. The airspace is being closed. Dan, Raising Cane is now down in the
Just
Caribbean.
thanking the troops. Just thanking
Yeah,
the troops.
we have a whole lot of assets for just touring the Caribbean. I mean, you and I have always thought at the end of the day we would not really go into Venezuela, but
Right.
I mean, if this is a game of chicken, boy, are we getting close to the line. Sean, I can't believe that either party would support like starting a ground war or going into the jungles of Venezuela. If there is action, I mean, I know on our side they're going to scream, against Trump, but you think the Republican Party holds together on this issue and says, yeah, we fully support, taking on Venezuela. There was a poll over the weekend. The majority of Americans support bombing the boats or blowing, they're not even missiles, blowing them up. But going into Venezuela is not too popular.
So let me go back to the question you're asking, right? There's two things that I think are the kryptonite of MAGA. H-1B and
Yeah.
H-1B visas and immigration, border security. Like if the president said border security, I'm letting everyone in, it's over.
Yeah.
Um, and I would sort of put H-1B because that really
Yeah.
divides a lot of MAGA, but
Yeah.
it's a subset of it. And then this foreign war stuff, like the idea that, the president was very clear since he came on the scene, no
Yeah.
more foreign wars. I think he has handled this brilliantly when it comes to like Iran, even Ukraine and Gaza, which is that's not this is America first. How do we solve a problem in our national interest without immediately sending a ton of cash, weaponry, and boots on the ground?
Yeah.
I think his approach on so many foreign policy issues has been the new America first doctrine of foreign policy. How do you serve American interests without actually having to get entangled in it for a long time? And he's done the same in Venezuela, where he's identified a threat. You've got this fentanyl, these drugs. I mean,
Yeah.
not fentanyl, but the drugs coming into America on these fast boats. We're going to take them out preemptively. Boom, got it. Okay, I can support that. Again, you're using,
Yeah.
you're firing missiles, taking it out, whatever. Going in to Venezuela and regime change, when I think most people would say, I'm sorry, what was going on down there?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? I think
After
that
20 billion to Argentina, and now we're
well,
like
the
this. I
20
mean,
billion, even that, like I've heard Secretary Bessent, talk about the current, and it's a little bit wonky,
yeah. Yeah.
but you can at least explain that away that, hey, we actually made money on this deal, or we're
Yeah.
gonna, I
Right.
mean, okay, on this one, going in and saying we're supporting regime change in Venezuela, when I got to be honest with you, this isn't like insulting to the American people, but you'd have to tell me what is
Well,
our
yeah.
national interest down there? Like, why are we going into Venezuela for regime change? Yes, Maduro, bad guy.
Yeah.
But explain to me what national interest threat that poses imminently to us, why we need to go. I mean, like, why now?
I'll be curious to see how 2028 Dems handle that for that exact reason. Does somebody try to split that difference because we've been on a back foot of being, seen as the kind of the Bush hawks, right? Of like the globalists of trying to solve all the world's problems. Does somebody step in and say wrong place, wrong time?
I do think that's to me, this is gonna be look, what you're saying is so critical because if I were a Dem for right now, I'd let that go. I'd let Republicans infight about this. I mean, like I said, the overarching question is what are we doing? So
Yeah.
why would you create that debate that we have to have internally? Just be like, hey, let them go have it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great point. All right, so let's go back up here for one sec. Another big story here. It was like an oh, by the way, on yesterday is healthcare. We've talked about it now, or the morning meeting. We've talked about it for a while. This idea of Republicans have a problem. We always talked about it during the government shutdown, and now there are reports that perhaps during the closed press executive order, the president may announce some sort of initiative on healthcare, and it is being reported that he is going to call on Congress to extend the Obamacare subsidies for 2 years, put it right in the middle of the presidential as we head into voting in 2028. 2 years would be 2027, the end of it here. And then some sort of a commission or working group to try to kind of solve the Obamacare problem for good over the next 2 years. Sean, I'm going to be really curious what Republicans say. I would think Democrats, I mean, I know Hakeem said 3 years. But I would think if Trump puts 2 years on the table, Democrats say, great.
Okay, but so here's my question. All right, so here's the offer.
Yeah.
2-year extension.
Yeah.
Um, I think what I read, at least, is
Yeah.
700% of the poverty
Yeah.
level.
Say a
Go one at a
cap.
time. Are
Yep.
you good with that?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think Dems would. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, good. What was there was another one on
It was a
app.
cap and
Oh, and no pre and you get a health savings account on the side.
yeah, that, and this may be a little bit of an issue, which is the idea that you would have to buy the cheaper
Right.
healthcare plan, which tends to have a higher deductible. Therefore, the health
But
savings plan
right.
would kind of
Okay.
help
Just
that.
broadly speaking, could you be in favor of that?
Yeah, it's that last part that I think that may split us a little bit. I think
Okay.
the most progressive wing will say like no, because poorer
Right.
people are now going to have a lesser healthcare plan and higher out-of-pocket costs. So you're right, it could split our side a little bit too. But what do Republicans
Okay, but
say?
wait, one more, which is there's a potential uh policy that would go into the or rider that would go into this that would say no funding for abortion on the side.
Abortion, yeah,
Would that
obviously
but
that
do you
would be a
think
problem.
but here's my thing. Here's how I'd get around that as a pro-life guy. I'd say, all
Yeah,
right, Democrats, that's why you need to buy into the health savings account because we're not going to let the government subsidize abortion, but you're going to get a health savings account. You want to go take your own money tax free, then I mean, I feel like that would be the way that Democrats could square the circle. But to me, this could be the one deal that Democrats like that they could actually say, you might want to take that deal.
I think it'll be interesting because I think we will have a clean if this is the offer, I think Democrats will say 2 year extension and a cap, right? So you keep it kind of middle class. I think we would say, look, they're putting riders on. So this is like the shutdown, right?
Right.
Democrats want all this other stuff. But you're right. It will be interesting. And again, I want to see Republicans in the House who have said hell no to any extension or like a 6 month are now going to have jammed down their throat. And I think the question is, does Trump lean into this? Does he say to the House, you got to do this and get this off the table?
So here's I want to bring up two aspects of this. One is I don't like this,
Yeah.
but we have waited too long. We
Yep.
don't have, I mean, this is where the practical political side comes out and says, hey
Yep.
guys, guess what, dum dum? We
Yep.
didn't do anything on this ever.
Yep.
So either we get crushed in the midterms and they run the table and then they actually get to have a big boy seat at the table to tell us what they really want, or we suck it up for a while and we do something in that interim period to actually enact a more market driven, common sense, patient first healthcare plan. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road saying Obamacare sucks and then we have nothing. And so to me, if Trump could say, I'm going to buy us time, guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be really fascinating. All right.
All right,
Lastly,
can I ask one more thing though? That this is fascinating because everyone is writing these stories about affordability, and I get it. And healthcare they think is central to this. I'm not convinced, and here's why. And I just want your take on this. I always say this, you've heard me over and over again. I think when you talk about affordability, you drive down the street, you look at the gas prices, and you're like, okay, I know all the time because I'm cheap how much gas costs. I go into the grocery store, I know how much lemons cost. I know how much, maybe
yep.
not milk to the cent, but generally speaking, I'm like, holy smokes, look at that. That's gone up, that's gone down. Okay. With healthcare, what is it? 90% of people, either between the government or their employer, are getting it. And so I'm not sure that this political narrative that healthcare is the new affordability is right because for the most part, most people are somewhat immune. Your copay is $20 when you go see the doctor. Yeah, maybe you have to switch your plan, but that's not an affordability argument. That's a healthcare argument. And I just wonder if everybody's overplaying this idea that healthcare is the new affordability.
I think the one place, Sean, so I agree with you in part, except for everyone every year gets that deductibility, statement of here's your new plan and your deductibility's gone from 5,000 to 7,000. A family of, if you have three or four, it's to 9,000. I think the two things are healthcare and housing. Rent keeps going up. healthcare is just people feel like it's out of control in terms of that deductibility. And so I think, yes, you are right. People aren't like my MRI's gone up or down, but that out of pocket money just keeps going up. And that's where people say it's sticker shock because you get it once a year. You go to see your gas, you can see it inching up, inching down. Same with food. You only get that like, here's your new 2026 plan. And you're like, okay, I have three choices. They're all bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see here. All right, the last topic here. Oh man, only the Democratic Party. It was floated over the weekend that the DNC is being asked to consider in the 2028 presidential primaries ranked choice voting. For those who don't know what that means, it means that when you go to cast your vote, you would say my first choice is, Sean, my second choice is Dan, my third is, Katie, and on and on. And therefore, if your candidate were to drop out or not, it would bump up, right? Your vote, your second choice would go up and up. The theory is that if candidates in the presidential dropped out, your vote, quote unquote, would not be wasted. In my opinion, what's insane about this is in a general election, there's no ranked vote, right? It is just whoever gets the most votes. And I think the idea of everybody trying to team together and the backroom deals of you be with me and not with this person, I think it's the party, outthinking itself. I think just stick to a primary. I would get rid of caucuses if it was up to me. Just vote, and whoever gets the most votes wins.
First of all, I can't. I'm glad you said ranked choice voting to me is the worst thing. And
Yep.
Republic, I mean, Democrats actually in the generals tend to do better. We
Yep.
lost. I mean, we've gotten screwed on this. So the thing that's interesting to me, and I don't know enough about what the thinking is, but one of the things that's fascinating to me, at least on the Republican side, is we're always trying to solve the last cycle's problems, not
Yeah.
thinking ahead. It's like, here's what happened last time that was wrong. Let's fix that instead of thinking, how do we modernize and make it better? I will say the other voting thing that got a ton of attention, I'm going to bring that up on my show today, 100%, is Eric Swalwell floating out uh, being able to vote by your phone in California.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, so in the same interview, he talks about you should never have to go to a DMV anymore, right? This should all be. And then in the same interview, he's talking about how you should be able to vote from your phone. And maybe this is the tinfoil and the black helicopters, but I'm like, you see the plan, folks? You get a license, you never have to go to the DMV, and guess what? And then you get to vote on your phone. And Swalwell just created, I mean, this is another one where this is going to get people on the right fired up, rightly so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, this was a like I I I hope if Ken Martin is smart, to your point, he just says vote. This
Yeah.
is like we start doing this whole thing about manipulating ranked choice voting sucks.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody realizes that you're just creating more problems than anything else.
I mean, the theory that they're saying is people will be nicer to each other because they're going to try to, hey, it's harder to slam you if I'm going to turn around and say, make me your number two or your three or whatever. All right. So a lot of action. It's a Monday.
And I just since it is a Monday, I just want to before I forget, I mentioned you know tonight I've got John Solomon on the
I was going to
show.
ask you who you got tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we've got this week's actually since we'll get to what we're doing in a second, but like John Solomon's gonna be on tonight, and you talk about like all this stuff happening, and at least maybe not on your side, but on our side, John's like amazing sources, always where the ball's gonna bounce, and so I'm excited for that.
Nice.
By the way, real quick, this who was it? Mark, I think in the YouTube chat is saying my background is fake. Are you kidding? I mean, look, you want me to move the flowers?
Mark, do you think those hydrangeas have looked that good every single day?
Well, guess what? I'm just going to tell you,
Yeah.
in line with our Christmas discussion, we're going to be changing to poinsettias very soon. So,
Very nice. Very
yeah.
nice. All right. So Sean, you have Solomon on tonight. And
What do you got
then
going on this week?
I don't have too much actually this week. We're going to go down to see my family on Wednesday, so I'm very excited to see all my family, and that is really it.
I love, first of all, for Christmas and Easter as a Christian are to
Yep.
me, but the one thing I love about Thanksgiving is not the one thing. I do love stopping to give thanks. I like the idea there's no gifts. Everybody just pauses for a moment, has a meal
Yep.
together. Like you don't run around trying to get this, wrap this at the last minute, go to it. There's no Thanksgiving parties, although maybe there should be. Um, I actually just love this week. It's
Yeah,
like, especially for those not in the DC area, like people actually take vacation.
yeah,
They take some time with their family. And again, Christmas as a father and as a Christian, I love. I love Easter for obvious reasons, but there's something about this week and in this area where normally the traffic's horrible and everyone's running
yeah,
around. It just everybody pauses, the schools pause.
yeah.
Like
Families
so
gather. It's great. I love Thanksgiving. I've got family birthdays this week, so it's always been kind of a fun. And for me, the next like 6 7 weeks are always great. So
yeah, I will
speaking
say it
of the
gets
future, a little bit
it
of a
gets well.
segue.
You're right. I do. The next few weeks are quite crazy, but yeah. So
Uh,
hopefully we can take a little pause this week, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for everyone, as I said, today was a special pop up. We just thought we're both in town. There seemed to be stuff going on, and we thought it would be leading into today. But we will not be on the rest of this week, barring something crazy.
Yeah.
Never
Something
say never.
crazy. Come. We'll put out a note. But if there's a deal on Ukraine or healthcare or something like that,
If Zelensky's here and whatever, then we'll see. But other than that, a lot of people have asked, about kind of Sean and myself here going forward. In December, we are going to do this kind of this I don't know what we call it, abbreviated version at 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday on Sean's channel. But on this coming Monday, a week from today, at 8:30, tune in and
talk
we'll
about what we plan to do.
yeah we're going to talk about our future.
I think one of the things that Dan is important is look, obviously we're working on this. So on Monday at 8:30, we'll give you a better sense of what's coming. But for the next few weeks, we'll do these little pop-ups at 8:30 in the morning. We'll just talk politics, read the chat, make sure people understand the background's real. But that's it. Just have some fun for the month of December. And on Monday at 8:30, Dan and I will give you a sense of what's going to come in the future.
Yeah, Sean and I like working together. We've become friends both on air and off, and we're going to continue that in some capacity. So tune in.
Well, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, in the meantime, happy Thanksgiving, Sean. Have a great time. And to everyone out there, happy Thanksgiving. And we will see you on Monday, December 1st at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah. And by the way, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, thanks to everybody who has tuned in and been supportive of us and everything we've done before. We wish everyone over there the best of luck going forward.
Yeah.
We appreciate all of your support and obviously enjoy our conversations and our time together. And that's why if you tune in next Monday at 8:30, we'll give you a better sense of what we're thinking of. So
Yep.
have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for everyone that's been so supportive, and we'll see you back here at 8:30. And again, I'm on all week at 6, so you can still get your fix. Great panel tomorrow with Batia. She'll be on with me.
Oh,
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like I got a fun week ahead.
yeah.
So hope everyone will see you at 6 o'clock every night all week.